Hello kind people of YouTube and welcome back to another video. Today, as always, we're going to take a quick look at the markets before looking at some news from the crypto world. Now, having a look at the markets here, we're seeing mostly sideways movements after the market saw another drop yesterday. Now, notably, we fell below $3,500 for Bitcoin yesterday, and today we're managing to be ever so slightly above it, 2% gains from 24 hours ago. But if you're looking at the 7-day graph here, that was from a slight down that quickly recovered. So for most of yesterday, it is roughly sideways movement. Most major coins seeing gains or losses under 2%, with not that much major movement going on here, so not all that much for us to talk about here. For now, it looks like the fall might have paused, but you also have to keep in mind it is a weekend where we traditionally see less movement. On Monday, we might suddenly see all of this kicking into high gear again. But as it stands, 24-hour volume is also significantly down for most coins, so it looks like everything might have quieted down for a bit. A lot of people wondering if the markets are going to go up or down now and just not moving at all while they're unsure. So let's look at some actual news, because we got some big ones today. If you have been waiting for the next major Ethereum upgrade for Constantinople to hit, we now have more information when that is going to happen. I'm going to read part of this, not the whole thing, and as always, you can get the links to all these articles in the description. Members of Ethereum's open source development team have reached agreement on an activation time for Constantinople, a proposed code change designed to give users the option to update the blockchain with additional features. Speaking at a bi-weekly core development meeting Friday, the developers agreed on block 7,080,000 on the Ethereum blockchain as an activation point, at which users would be able to elect to upgrade to the new code. Put simply, should users choose to accept the change by upgrading their software, the update would go live when the block is mined. Now, this makes it sound like it's a very unclear thing, like we don't know if it is going to go live or not, like should they accept, they have the choice. But this is a relatively non-controversial upgrade. So it is expected that the vast majority of people on the network, if not everybody, will approve this, will update to the new software. So this should go relatively smoothly. This is not the kind of hard fork situation that we've seen with Bitcoin Cash last month, where it was split into two completely separate blockchains with different proponents, different features. That is not likely going to happen here. This is more like an upgrade than a hard fork. Now, it's reported on as a hard fork because it technically is, but look at this as more of an upgrade. Anyways, back to the article. According to estimates by release manager for the parity Ethereum client Afri Schöden, this means Constantinople is expected to go live between January 14th and 18th. If you're wondering why that is a 5-day range, the simple reason is that when they're running an upgrade on most cryptocurrencies really, but Ethereum in particular, they usually pick a certain block. As we saw here, it's 7,880,000. And you cannot exactly predict when that block will happen, because the network speed can change slightly, but it is looking to be between January 14th and 18th. And this is not the only major upgrade that they have planned for the future. A massive one is meant to go live in 2019. It says here Ethereum 1x. I talked about that on the channel, I think about a week ago. That has supposed to have major technological upgrades that are really supposed to bring Ethereum into this new world of cryptocurrencies that have many features that Ethereum currently does not have. It is really meant to update Ethereum to the 2018-2019 world. But Constantinople is also pretty big, and Constantinople, of course, pushes back the difficulty bomb significantly for a year and a half. The difficulty bomb, of course, is a hard-coded thing in the Ethereum blockchain that is essentially forcing them to run upgrades, to keep running upgrades, to keep improving their software. Because if they don't improve their software and if they let a difficulty bomb happen, let's us say that is not going to go well. So they have an incentive to keep pushing up new upgrades that always then push it back by a couple months, so that then in a couple of months they'll be forced to upgrade the blockchain in another way. So Constantinople, coming soon, will bring with it a bunch of little things. Most of them you won't really notice on the consumer side, but there's a lot of underlying tech stuff changing, like the mining rewards. But while Ethereum is looking great right now, with a pretty clear timeline on when major upgrades are happening and without much controversy, Ethereum Classic has had a pretty tough week, and this is actually from a couple days ago already. This article is from today, but the core news they're talking about here happened a couple days ago. Let's just read this and you'll see what I'm talking about. It is with great regret that I communicate the shutdown of ETC Dev current activities related to Ethereum Classic effective immediately. So begins a short statement from Igor Artamonov. I probably mispronounced that, I'm very sorry. ETC Dev's founder and CTO posted to Twitter on Monday, December 3rd. ETC Dev is a development group dedicated to Ethereum Classic projects, namely Classic Dev, the Emerald platform for dApp development, the Emerald wallet, and Sputnik VM, ETC's implementation of the Ethereum virtual machine. Artamonov told Ether News that although another company will probably continue to work on the protocol, ETC Dev will still be involved in the non-core projects. The people behind the Ethereum Classic Twitter account were quick to point out that ETC Dev's exit is not the death knell for Ethereum Classic, and this was their tweet. Ethereum Classic is not ETC Dev. Ethereum Classic is IOHK, ETC Co-op, ETC Labs, ETC Dev, and a litany of volunteers. Keep calm, and build on. So what we have here is that one of the main, not the only, but one of the main bodies of people who are developing on Ethereum Classic, who are developing Ethereum Classic itself, had to shut down. There is a lot of there's a lack of clarity and some controversy around what has been going on. This article goes into a lot of detail about that, so I do suggest you read it yourself. It's a very long article, so I'm showing you just how long it is. I'm not going to read all of this. But there's a lot going on in the background, and we don't quite know what is going on there with funding, with some interpersonal stuff, with some companies involved, a lot going on. We don't know exactly what has been happening here. We don't know exactly why ETC Dev is shutting down. But while Ethereum Classic can absolutely survive this is still very painful, losing some of your core developers like that, pretty much from one day to the next as well. As far as I'm aware, there were no mutterings about this in advance, at least nothing public. There might have been rumors, but nothing I saw anywhere. And let's see how they will come through this, if a lot of other developers will come forward to do that work. Like this tweet clarifies here, there are a bunch of other corporations and companies and volunteers who are working on Ethereum Classic as well. So this doesn't necessarily mean that Ethereum Classic is over, but this is a major blow. And it's never nice to see so much uncertainty around both the coin now, because lost one of the core developers, but also around this why this had to happen. Because we don't have clear reasons. We know it has something to do with funding, but aside that, very little reasons. It's just... I've seen some people say this was just a victim of the long market downturn, that their funding pretty much dried up, that their holdings lost value. That is absolutely a possibility, but to me it seems like there was probably more going on here, especially with, as you can see from this long article, with a lot of controversy, a lot of different statements coming from different people in the background. This is absolutely still a developing story at this point, and I will keep on top of it for the near future to see how Ethereum Classic will come through this. But from the less optimistic, let's get to the more optimistic. We have some statements from Van Eck, one of the major financial world companies that are behind upcoming Bitcoin ETFs that they're hoping to get approved by the SEC. Now, we know the SEC has to approve these or deny them by February 27th, and they are now saying they're cautiously optimistic. Gabo Gurbax, I probably mispronounced that, Director of Digital Asset Strategy at Van Eck, has expressed optimism over the SEC's impending decision on the long-mooted Bitcoin exchange-traded fund proposal by Van Eck and SolidX. Speaking to host Brad Smith during an appearance on Cheddar, Gurbax stated that while the market clearly wants a Bitcoin ETF, the only update available is that Van Eck believes it has provided enough compelling reason for the SEC to approve the long-awaited fund, and it believes it has a good chance of receiving the regulator's blessing. And this is the big quote here. The last day the ETF can be approved is end of February. We think we have met all required market structure, obstacles, and requirements on pricing, custody, evaluation, safekeeping. So we are consciously optimistic. Oh, consciously. I thought it said cautiously. Here it says cautiously, there it says consciously. Well, hard to know which one they actually mean. I assume it's cautiously. but there's a lot more work to be done sort of to get the market ready, and some good announcements recently on over-the-counter markets being transparent. We don't really need to read the rest of this, it just goes into the discussion around his statements, obviously some people agreeing, some disagreeing. Now the way I see this, as a representative of FunEgg, as a representative of the ETF that they're hoping to get approved, he pretty much has to come out and say that they're optimistic, because otherwise what will their investors think? Like, you don't tell your investors that you're unsure if your product is legal. So of course they're going to say that they're optimistic here. Now I think there is reason to be optimistic here. I think a lot of people bemoan the fact that this decision has been repeatedly pushed back. But the way I see it, if it's repeatedly pushed back, that means that there isn't a clear consensus on rejecting them. Because if they just wanted to reject them, they would have done that already. And if they just wanted to reject them, they also wouldn't have reviewed a bunch of other decisions from earlier. So I think there's ongoing, strong, controversial discussion within the SEC about whether this should be approved or not. And the longer they push it back, the more discussion there is, and the longer they are seriously discussing, the higher the chances that they will come to an approval. Now, I'm not expecting them to approve it, but if they're controversially discussing this for months and months within themselves, even if they're rejecting it now, sooner or later, we're going to be pushed over the edge where they approve one. Whether it's this Bitcoin ETF or another one or an ETF for another cryptocurrency entirely, sooner or later, be it through the passing of time, be it through more discussion within the SEC, be it through more outside pressure, be it through different people joining the SEC and some people possibly leaving it, be it through maturing of the market, or be it through a different type of ETF being proposed, sooner or later one will be approved. And this time that they're taking, to me, that is a sign that they're doing their due diligence, that they're taking a serious look, that they're discussing, that they're researching, and that is much better than them just pushing out a rejection. And last up for today, Gemini adds Bitcoin Cash. And it's notable which Bitcoin Cash they're choosing here. Cryptocurrency exchange Gemini announced support for Bitcoin Cash custody and trading today with a post on its official Medium blog on December 8th. Gemini, which is based in the United States, was founded in 2015 by the Winklevoss brothers. The exchange pointed out that at the moment it will only be providing support for the Bitcoin ABC network, which is identified on the platform as Bitcoin Cash with the BCH ticker. So this is the latest voice in the chorus that Bitcoin Cash ABC is from now on pretty much considered the real Bitcoin Cash. The markets have decided, the crypto world has decided, Bitcoin Cash ABC is Bitcoin Cash. Bitcoin Cash SV is something completely separate. But back to the article. Gemini declared that they are continuing to evaluate Bitcoin SV over the coming weeks or months, and we may or may not choose to support withdrawals and or trading of Bitcoin SV in future. In order to ensure legal compliance, the company, which claims to be the world's most regulated cryptocurrency exchange and custodian, reportedly worked closely with the New York State Department of Financial Services to obtain approval to offer Bitcoin Cash trading and custody services. Now, a lot of people frown upon Gemini and other US-based exchanges, but especially Gemini because they are so big on regulation, on being compliant. And I definitely get that, because if you're in the crypto world, because a lot of people in the crypto world are very much in it as a way to kind of protest the way governments and big finance has been dealing with money in the past, with the way people have been taxed, with the way money has been distributed, with the way money has been printed, with the way financial products have been created. And they see this as a betrayal of that. I get that. I definitely get that. I am in the crypto world primarily as an investor. And I am in here to look at the future of the crypto markets, where it can potentially go. I'm not ideologically on either side really here. I'm just looking at the cold hard situation and the facts, and I'm looking at where it can potentially go in the future. That is how I try to look at it. Now, everyone has biases, but that is what I try to do. And the way I look at exchanges like Gemini is that a lot of us might not be very happy about how closely intertwined with government they are. But a lot of institutional investors are very, very happy about that. Because as much shady stuff as is going on in the finance world, if they can do something in a way that gives them at least a veneer of authenticity, of regulation, of compliance, they're going to choose that. And if you're an institutional investor, or if you're just a very rich person, and you have millions, maybe even billions that you want to invest in cryptocurrencies. Are you going to go with the US-based exchange that is closely working with governments to be compliant, where you have clarity that in regulatory terms everything is okay, that you're acting legally? Or are you going to go, and that has to do with established people in the fintech world and established companies. Or are you going to go with some crypto startup from a couple of years ago that is located in like Malta or in a tax haven somewhere, where you don't have clarity who is running it, where you don't have clarity if it's properly regulated? You are going with the regulated one just because you want to play everything safe, because you know you are big enough that you will be audited and you have to make sure that everything is in order. If you're a smaller investor, if you're not rich, then you don't have to worry as much about maybe not everything working perfectly legally. Because you're less likely to be audited, it's less likely that people will take a close look at your financial dealings. But if we're talking about millionaires and billionaires and large corporations and fintech companies, and if we're looking at hedge funds and all those people, they have to make sure that everything at least can be construed as being legal and compliant, because people actually pay attention to their tax returns. And there's a lot of people who are very interested. So for people like that, exchanges like Gemini are the one that they flock to. And so seeing Bitcoin Cash ABC on there, that, or rather just Bitcoin Cash, let's just call it Bitcoin Cash. Seeing Bitcoin Cash on there, that legitimizes Bitcoin Cash, that gives more options to investors that really have a lot of money. And that also means that a regulatory body has looked at Bitcoin Cash and has said, yes, you're allowed to deal in that. And ultimately, that should be good for the crypto world and for Bitcoin Cash and pretty much for all of us in the long term. More access for institutional investors means more potential money flowing in, means more potential for large investment, means a better image for the crypto world among the people that can actually change things. And with that, I'm going to end today's video. I think it was a pretty hopeful one. I always like being hopeful. I think we have a bright future ahead, and sometimes it's hard to see that when the markets are going down, but I always try to focus on that. I always try to focus on where we are going long term, on all the work that is being done to build an infrastructure, to build adoption, to build the image of the cryptocurrency, to build of the cryptocurrency world, to build technologies and blockchains and partnerships. I always try to look at that. Yeah. As always, you can find all the articles in the description. If you enjoyed this video and you want to support me, there are ways to do it in the description. But what really, really, really helps and what doesn't take any effort or money is just leaving a like and leaving a comment. I know everyone on YouTube asks you guys to do that stuff, but that's because it really helps. Having a lot of comments, having a lot of upvotes, that really helps people to be discovered. So if you like my video, I would really appreciate it if you took the 5 seconds to just hit like and maybe write a short little comment. Super appreciate it. Aside from that, I will see you guys in my next video, either later today or tomorrow. Thanks for watching.